Hello, everybody, whomever may be watching. Let me add my guests in here in just a second. I am Tracy Reddy, and this is my husband, Antonio. And we are discussing the book today, Cry Like a Man. Whether you have read the book or not, this will be a interesting discussion, I believe, because for the simple fact, we don't often get to peek behind the curtain and hear the heart of men. So, um, I think it will be excellent for us to just have that dialogue. Give me just 1 second. I'm going to add in some more participants, and as they come in, they can obviously join in. Um, Earl, hello. Great to meet you for the first time ever in life.
Tracy, nice to meet
Although
you
I
too.
really enjoy your posts, you post some of the most clever things.
Well, thank you. It's nice to meet you, and nice to meet your husband too. How y'all doing?
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Good to see you.
And
Good to see you.
and also Tracy's here. I don't know if she is there or she's not, but that's
Hi,
okay.
I'm
All right,
here.
all right.
Is she hiding?
She's hiding.
I'm hiding.
How you
All
guys doing?
right. So I guess we'll start with I guess obvious. Just overall, what is your takeaway from the book? Just the big overall just nugget. If you had to summarize it in a couple of sentences, what is you guys take away from the book? And anybody can jump in and answer first.
We were all looking at him. We were like,
Well, I'll jump in. I'll say mine first, and y'all just fall in. So for me, I think I was expecting it to be more of a self-help type of book. Oh, there she is. I was expecting it to be more of a self-help type of book, you know. But what I saw is how the story just unfolded and how he walked through his process of really healing and coming to a place of wholeness versus, you know, more of what I'm used to as a counselor. I'm used to okay, step by step, here's how you do it, you know. And he didn't do that. And that really stood out to me because in a way I started to think, you know, or the question that I was left with is that how men better process things just through like the dialogue and see it? Because I've read plenty of reviews and folks are like, man, my husband was reading this and he was crying, or my dad or my whoever, you know, was reading this and it was bringing up a lot of emotion for him. And I'm like, did it? Oh, okay. And so, you know, it just didn't strike me in that way, even though there were some emotional moments. But I think it's been said that it's brought a lot of healing to me. And it was just maybe unusual to me or unexpected to me to just have a story to unfold that way and bring out that much for others. So, but I think it was a wonderful story. And it was a great book.
I think for me as a man, it was relatable from the time he was a boy and how he was, told to man up and was suppressing his emotions from the time he was a kid, and the things that he went through and the things he was suppressing, and he didn't really come out like as they was unchecked emotion until he was much older in life.
Mm-hmm.
But the things that he went through, things that he experienced, and the lack of emotions that was shown was the norm for me as a young man. So it wasn't like he said, if you express your emotions, you're considered soft. If you cry, you soft, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So um I think a lot of men empathize with him in that way.
Yeah,
So
okay. I can get that. That
yeah,
finally a place where you can kind of let your
yeah.
emotions flow and see another man doing it too.
yeah,
What you guys think?
I actually agree with you. For me, growing up in the inner city, um, unlike most stories, which are not really written from the man's point of view, we can really, I mean, a lot of those experiences we can really relate to, and we can actually kind of see ourselves in. So I can see a lot of people finding these cathartic moments where, hey, I've been through that too, and I didn't know I could feel this. The thing that struck me though is, really going on this journey too, but recognizing that men have strength and emotions too. Our challenge is understanding that doorway, that pathway of how do we actually open those up and let those out to the world so that we can actually experience healing too. Most of the only, like Mr. Reedy said, most of the only emotions that we were allowed to experience when we were young was anger and toughness and strength. And that doesn't give us any room for, any softness, any loving or anything like that. And um, I think that the real part about the book that kind of struck me and kind of stood out for me was, as men, how we don't realize how that actually blocks our ability to even relate to God. And it's hard to relate to a father and otherwise without being able to relate to a God. Women have this beautiful ability to relate to God as father because they have the image of their daddy and they can lay softly in their daddy's lap and they're all that. And most of us didn't have that experience necessarily with our fathers. So we relate to God even differently. And that pathway to him is a lot of times more bumpy, a little bumpy, and a little different, all that. So yes, I found it was a mixed bag for me in a couple of ways, but I thought it was a pretty good book. It's pretty interesting.
That's interesting. That just goes to show how much we don't hear things from the male perspective. Because, like I said, I'm hearing it like, "Oh, this is a great story," and y'all are hearing it from like an inner voice, like, "Man, this is my life being told."
I think one of the first notes I took said, "The father's affirmation is foundational to a son's confidence."
Yeah,
and right there, I identify with that too because I didn't have a father's affirmation, and I was just trying to figure things out, and didn't have any guidance, And for me as a young man, it's like I was desensitized to a lot of things. And then it was really unhealthy. I was 15 when now my stepfather, I was playing a video game, he got shot. And he said he called he called my name and said somebody shot me, call the police. And for me it wasn't
even flinch.
I didn't flinch. I didn't even stop playing my game immediately. It was more normalized to me. It was my norm. So so
well, before we jump all the way into like those takeaways, Trace, I don't want to leave you out. What's your overall like takeaway from the book altogether? Oh, we don't hear you, babe.
You're muted.
I haven't read it yet. It's been a busy season, so I did the college student thing, and I called Earl and I said, "Can you just do what it said?"
I wasn't gonna tell on you. But
I don't even mind. I would have been like, "Give me some cliff notes. Let me get you right in my."
Okay, well that's fine. That's fine. So, and that's good. That's okay because we really want to hear from the men mostly, but I don't want to leave us out. Okay, so jumping into the actual book and some of the chapters, I thought it was interesting. He bringing up his grandfather. It was Estes Wright. Yeah, and he was saying that. The note I took there was the audacity to be a black man, because he was just, he had described him as being bold and relentless, and just even in the era of his time where things were so, not equal for black people, he still marched around like any other man. And as we see, it cost him a large price. What are y'all thoughts on chapter 1 and that just that almost like a seed planted of despair in that family, What's y'all's thoughts on that, man?
Well,
go ahead, Earl.
No, I see it as like the typical, the kind of seed planted of despair. But once again, I think it's a story that most of us as men can really identify with, because that experience of what he actually experienced feels like the same thing we feel when, as proud black men, and when we get harassed by police, when we get followed in stores, when we get disrespect on the job, when you get passed over. I mean, it's just a consistent series of small traumas and stuff like that that we normalize, like that we normalize to a degree, or internalize more so. I wasn't as moved by it as a man I probably should have been. And I think that's kind of a theme that went through the whole book for me a little bit. Is that almost like your husband said, man, it's normalized for us. So it's like we're not even moved by it. It doesn't distress us. So even the stories and stuff like that weren't even as impactful for me as probably they should have been. As probably they should have been and all that. So I kind of thought about that.
Wow. What you thought, Tookie?
Well, I think it set the tone. It set the tone for the book, and I as a man, like Earl said, like just seeing that, it's like, man, it challenges your pride, you know, and it's like we want to be seen as men, you know, like you know, in this country, we weren't always considered a whole man, you know. So that's why I'm like, I know that people say it like, I got a whole boyfriend, I got a whole girl, you know, but I don't use that because we wouldn't consider whole. We're 3/4 of men,
right?
You know, graduate 3/4 of men. First, we was considered animals, you know, then 3/4 of men. So, but he wants to be recognized as a man, and I was thinking when I read it, like, what would I do in that situation? You know, like, you know, but now, like, you know, we'll say we won't be slaves or we won't do this or that, but we wouldn't have the same mindset we have now back then. So,
And it really boils down to, I mean, one of the core things that men need other than just affirmation is respect. And it really started out the book of just showing these are stories that have been passed down to us as men for generations. So one of the first real stories he remembers of his grandfather is a story of disrespect all through his life, and disrespect to such a point that that it became so overwhelming and so much that he was willing to give up his life for it. He was just like, at some point, enough is enough. If I need to give my life for it, and you know, we get a lot of those still being black men in this country. We still get those little minor, you know, microaggressions day in and day out and all that. But we're in tune to see them all the time too, because these are the stories that we have passed down too. So it kind of set that tone, you know.
It's to hear the way, like, so it's so cool to hear y'all saying this, because to hear the ways that it hit y'all versus the way that it hit me, I was like, oh my God, this is horrible, this is terrible. Not that I hadn't heard stories of us being, you know, these things happening, but you know, I'm not numb to it, or have, you know, I'm still I've been given the liberty to feel it, you know, whereas like y'all haven't, and that's the whole point of this book, you know.
I think for us it hit home. Like, literally
it was like an expression of wow, here it goes, you know, right here, right in front of us. Whereas I'm just like, oh my God, you know. So So the next chapter opened with him starting with, and Tracy, chime in whenever you want to, okay? The next chapter opened with him saying emotions are great servants but poor masters. And I have a little saying that I always say: emotions are supposed to be a what's my word? Indicator. Like an indicator light on your car. Emotions are supposed to give you an indication that something needs to happen. And even with women, we find that, you know, people ignore their emotions all the time. People put those things on the back burner and just try to press on through because either they don't know how to manage it or don't even have the wherewithal to recognize it. It's like, oh, that don't feel good. Let me just ignore that. But they still, emotions, just because you ignore them don't mean they don't show up and then start mastering in your life. You know, and so he says emotions are great servants but poor masters. They're supposed to serve you, serve the purpose of telling you, you know, that something's going on, you need to respond in a certain way. But we do find that we often react. So that kind of led into the story about Sinclair Sr. and his mom's relationship. And for you gentlemen, I would love to know, and I mean, I know yours, but you know, tell the people about the relationships that you've seen in the women in your life, not even just mom, but anybody in your life, and how you've seen other men have their emotions be the masters and not servants. Like as boy coming up and everything.
Well, are you asking how did how did it affect the women? That's your question?
However you want to address it. Like, how did it affect the women? How did it affect you seeing it affect the women?
Um, so coming up, it was like I didn't really see any emotions like played out like or dealt with, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because you know, well, like with my mom and my grandma, if we got in trouble, we just got punished for it, you know, and wasn't talked to about it. Then when told what we was doing wrong, it was just the punishment. But
Mm-hmm.
and her relationships with my stepdad, and my well, her boyfriend, which is my stepdad now, it's like I never seen any healthy really healthy disagreements with them, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a model for me, you know.
Yeah.
And my grandparents were my grandpa was a very meek man. So him and my grandmother never argued. So I um I never seen like the way to really deal with conflict in a
Mm-hmm.
positive way. So
Hmm. Yeah. Um, Man, that's deep, bro. Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I spent 5 months of the pandemic caring for my 87-year-old mother and my 90-year-old dad. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so it's timely because this is like the first time that I've sat with them for months and just talked about stuff from my past and all that, which was deep. And I'm like you, I didn't. My parents stayed together. My parents are obviously still together. They've been together, almost 60, 70 years.
Wow.
But I didn't see a healthy way of conflict a lot in my family. And I grew up in a family that had like extremely, extremely strong women, extremely verbose, fighting, all that, just strong women hold it down. Um, so my mom was like that, and I watched my mom, and I'll just deal with that relationship because a lot of the other relationships were just crazy as well as that. But I've always watched my mom be very, very aggressive, and my father, grew up as my dad was my superhero, you know. So I watched my mom for years yelling, screaming, cussing at him and stuff like that. My dad just be like real kind of calm, not really reacting around us and all this other stuff. And I never really understood that. In some ways, I was always like, Dad, why you let somebody disrespect you like that? You know. And but so being there now, I reflect back on, and I've learned stories about my grandfather who had three girls, you know what I'm saying? My grandfather who was extremely physically abusive in front of them and all the other stuff. And he stabbed me and all this other stuff when I was a kid. And just recognizing where she got this kind of protective demeanor from that she actually brought into our household, and then seeing how my dad kind of dealt with it quietly and internally a little bit, but not healthily, but not really, really in a healthy way where he could actually help her work through some of her pain and trauma. And then him actually feel like he had a safe space where he could talk about some of the stuff that he was dealing with, which may have caused him to act out in certain ways.
Mm.
So that's an interesting question. That'll be a whole nother show, man. Because my family,
mhm.
yeah, my family tonight, man, it's crazy. I'm just as an adult now
Right.
looking back and seeing it from a whole different perspective, and I'm like, oh man, that was going on. That's crazy. So yeah, it was a very unhealthy dynamic. But the ironic thing is, I feel like I have an extremely close knit family. Like we all tight, we in each other's lives and all that. But we're in each other's lives in a very toxic communication modality, but not necessarily in the connective piece. So it's a weird dynamic, and it's caused me to kind of look at my behaviors and how I choose women, how I see things, and all the other stuff. It's caused me to go through this kind of real self-evaluation piece I've been going through for a few months. So yeah, it's a
Yeah,
lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
Mm.
I feel growing up like all my relationships were surface. You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, all of
Yeah.
as an adult, they got deeper with my family, but then everything was surface. You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
because we didn't communicate, we didn't get anything. You know.
and get into the
Yeah.
root, the deeper causes of
Yep.
things and all that. And I mean, I think that's obviously common in a lot of families, not even just Black families. I mean, it's just common
Yeah.
in a lot of families.
Yeah.
We went to a premarital counseling session back in what, 2016, 2017.
Sorry, 2016.
Yep. Okay. And it was a mixed crowd. It was about what, 20, 25 couples in there. So about 50 or so people,
Uh-huh.
40 to 50 people. And they came to they were going over different parts of, things to discuss before you get married. And one of the issues that came up was, what's the father wound, the parent wound. So they got to the father, talking about the moms and stuff. Then they got to the fathers, and they was like, how many of your father was actually there and present and, emotionally available, blah, 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 blah. One guy out of that whole room full of people,
Yeah.
and it was mixed cultures in there.
Yeah.
One guy raised his hand, and he was like a unicorn that we all looked at in awe, because everybody else had the same story, and you had all kind of socioeconomic levels, everything in this room, and everybody attested to either the dad either wasn't there or was there and just not really present, like you said, Earl, not able to walk the family through emotional turmoil or whatever, just the day-to-day things, just not being there. And this book kind of just, I mean, I'm seeing it as it's speaking to that, just even you two talking, but y'all like, y'all got a lot to say it.
Now, I mean, you bring up interesting points. I mean, it was 2016. Now, my dad is 90 years old. 2016 was the first time my dad told me he loved me. Because I hugged my dad and told him I love you and stuff like that. He almost choked on the words and actually saying it. And so we had a long conversation just about that. He talks about it. His generation, stuff like that, man, they were coming out of war. They were coming out of Great Depression.
Yeah.
All the brothers left home and stuff like that to actually go work in the steel mills and stuff like that when they were young. So all their interactions were other men who were around them. The women stayed at home and all that. So it wasn't this wasn't like a real bowl of emotional support and continuity.
Right.
And I don't know about you, brother, but it's like, I don't know about you, man. It would be an interesting question. Me and my boys just talking about that. It's like sometimes when you grow up, as we kind of get like into like teen stuff like that, you try to find that one thing that defines you as a man. Everybody has a whole thing of getting girls, getting numbers and stuff like that. But it's like, but for me, it's like the one thing definition I had of my dad was he was a hard worker. So for me, that's how you define a man. You know what I'm saying? A man is when somebody works hard, outworks everybody else and stuff like that. Man, I took that definition to the extreme and just trying to find manhood and all that. So I saw in the book him having that same experience of just how you jump from one male experience to another, just trying to, how do you actually define manhood? How do I actually find who I am? Somebody tell me and show me who I am. You going to a brother, to the cousin, otherwise, and all.
Yeah. Well, for me personally, I didn't have, my daddy wasn't in the home. My mama's boyfriend, he was there, but he wasn't there. He was on drugs, so he wasn't there at all. And personally, I didn't know anybody. I grew up with a daddy. Well, I had one cousin who had a daddy, like in the home. So that was the norm, not having a father in the home. I'm talking about my friends, my family, so, and but I was thinking like I can't think about anything. Like, I love my daddy now. We have a relationship. I saw him in the summer times, but I wanted more. But then as a grown man, I thought that, I realized that I can't expect him to give me what's not in him. His daddy died at, I think he was maybe 9. So, and I think our relationship's always been on the surface, but I love him, and I was thinking that if he would have known better, he would have did better, because there's no doubt he loves me, and he loves me more because of her.
He says that all the time. He's like, all the daddies love me more.
That's exactly right.
I tell her, man, I was like, man, I wish my daddy loved me like he loved you.
They ain't totally different. No, they ain't totally different. I'll be like, where all these loves coming from? Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's hilarious because I got great relationships with his stepdad, his real dad. I mean, we just, I'm a daughter. I'm a daughter for them, And he says all the time, he was like, man, I should have had you a long time ago. I was gonna pour this kind of love on us like this. Yeah. Well, hey, that's a hey, the Bible says,
But
man, find a wife, find a good thing, get favor from all his daddies apparently.
You know what? I was thinking like, like there's nothing that my daddy like really told me that I remember. But then I thought about it. When I was 10, he used to work he worked his job in Oklahoma City, and he told me he never misses a day. And I don't know if that's true or not, but since she told me that, I remember in 4th grade, I didn't miss a day of school.
Exactly. Yep.
I didn't miss a day of school. I was sick. I still came to school because in my head, my daddy don't miss days.
Right.
So I missed a day. And I loved school at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It left the next year in 5th grade, but I love school up to that point. I'm a teacher now.
Oh, that's cool. See, yeah, that's real cool. But it's like these little things that sometimes they say, and we grab them like these monuments as, oh, this is what a man's supposed to be. This is what it's supposed to be. And we latch onto those. It's like, and I have, it's crazy because I have 2 older brothers and we're all 6 years apart, and I'm the youngest. And each of my brothers relates to my mother and my father totally different. You would think we had totally different parents. It's crazy. Like my oldest brother is just worships my dad and just he can't do anything wrong, and it's just, and my middle, and I spend a lot of time with my middle brother Kevin, and Kevin doesn't have a strong attachment. I mean, he just doesn't have like this emotional connection. And so we talked about that, and it's like, while Kevin was growing up, my dad was away working, 18, 20-hour days. And so I didn't realize when Kevin just kept on talking, dad wasn't there. And I'm arguing and talking about, what are you talking about? My dad took me to my doggone basketball games, taught me how to do rules. We did bathrooms and all this other stuff. They had very different relationships with both of my parents. And so when we talk, it's like, this is the first time we talk without butting heads, because we actually started listening and understanding each other's different experiences and all that. But I saw my brother Kevin kind of middle kid, you know what they say about middle kids anyway, kind of searching for his manhood in a lot of different ways because my dad wasn't there in the same way. I had a definition of my dad who was a workaholic, but that became my definition of, hey, you work hard and all that. That's a man. Right. I can be like my dad. My older brother Kenny, I don't know what his experience was and all that. He just problems anyway. But it's just interesting how you develop and go through life, and people have and our parents evolve too. Our parents evolve too. So it's just weird seeing the different relationships, and then even reading in the book how while he watched his brother's kind of evolution and kind of growing and finding the affirmation of his manhood in God and in other areas and stuff like that. It's about his manhood and the respect and actually promoting and making money, which is why he brought his dad that expensive gift and stuff like that as as coming man to man and stuff like that. So it says we all searching for it in different ways, man. And it's just and a lot of times we don't find the right ways,
Yeah. And the thing that I'm hearing, like y'all both saying, even hearing Jason say in the book, like you said, and that just really sticks out to me. The way that your dad said one little thing, and it's like, this is it. And it's like it just goes to show how big that question is in the spirit of a young boy. Mm-hmm. Somebody tell me what being a man is, and your daddy just say one little thing. One little you're like, oh, that's it, And it just I don't know who's gonna watch this in the replay, but if you are a father, just realize how big your voice is. If you can't see your child, if you can't talk to your child every day or whatever, try to send a text, a letter, something, especially to your boys, because they are really hungry, as you were, more than likely, to understand what a man is, what a man does. So I just think that's so big to hear all of y'all to say that same thing,
Yeah, I like that. And the example of our fathers, man, even they're not there in the home and stuff like that, is you never how they talk to us is going to gauge how we relate to male figures and authority figures in the future. How we see them talking to women and addressing women, that's what, trust me, that's either what we're gonna do or we're gonna rebel. It's like, you know, I felt my son, I got a 26-year-old son and stuff like that, man. I just, because my dad never said I love you to you, I tell him like overboard I love him and all the other stuff. Matter of fact, I sent him the book just so we know how good he got it. But but as men, we have to not live in the trauma that we got from we gotta heal. Because we don't heal, we're gonna pass it down to the next generation, which is what happened to our fathers. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah.
I'm really proud of y'all's generation because y'all are really breaking those cycles. To even just read a book like this and be on discussion like this, it's really stopping some stuff from continue to pass down. What were you about to say? You look like you had something to say.
No.
Okay.
Well, what's happening? Conversation about fathers that affect us.
Mm-hmm.
It made me think about this book. This book right here is called The Other Westmore.
Uh-huh.
Have you read that one?
No,
Okay, hold on.
Man.
Let's turn my light down.
That's that book, Earl. It's really good.
Okay, The Other Westmore. Okay.
Yeah, I just finished it though.
Oh, that's about Wes. Yeah. Wes is a good dude. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know.
I actually met him years ago when we was doing some commentating stuff and all that. Real good dude.
Good dude. It's a really good book though, and it parallels their lives and
Two different Westmores.
Yeah, two different Westmores, and one of the things they had in common, there's a few things, but there was no father in the home, for different reasons.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah, the impact of fathers is just really huge. I've known it, but to hear y'all, to get a chance to sit here and kind of be a fly on the wall and hear y'all say these things is really it's really huge. It's really huge, and I'm hoping that if any men are watching this, like I said afterwards, speaking to the lives of young folks. I mean, it's a whole. Ooh, Lord, it's a whole lot of it. Like you said about talking to girls and how that, even that, all that stuff comes up too. There's a whole subculture out here that y'all probably heard of. I'm not even gonna say the name of it because that is, I'm not gonna give it no play. But it's teaching young boys not just the whole hey, how to be a player type. It's going way beyond about women ain't nothing, and it's enforcing this disrespect of women and all that kind of stuff. So we need the men who know that is falsehoods to be standing up and coming up against that. So just that's just a thought. Do you have something earlier you want to say before we move on?
I was just thinking about what you just said, man. It's like young girls get so much. Well, we consider get so much attention when they're younger.
Yeah.
Because they mold and they get the dresses they immediately get defined from birth relative to what a girl is. As soon as a baby gets born, she has little flowers, she has dresses that look different than ours and everything else. So women get like a real affirmation of their femininity straight out the womb. Men, we don't really get an affirmation of that until we start, you get a little kid, for you a 3-year-old, you get a little baseball bat or something like that for Christmas. We don't really start getting that affirmation in our maleness. And men are sponges, just like women are. We are sponges when we are kids. We hear everything, we see everything, we internalize everything, whether you know it or not. And we hear just like this. That's why they always say, hey, you don't curse around little kids. They end up cursing and stuff like that. With men, we start that search very, very early also. And for fathers, man, it's like you really got to start instilling that example in front of your kids early, because we didn't get it. And if we didn't get it, we're going to find it somewhere, because there's a hole in our heart where God is supposed to fill to really affirm our manhood. So that's what we're really searching for. But we're going to find it in a million different places and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yes, sir. Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. You gonna move on?
Okay. I'm gonna start crying on the Zoom now.
So the next part that he talked about was his father. So that was Sinclair Sr., which was the abusive father to his older brothers, and all that, and that was the whole thing. But then he talked about his own dad, and Oprah has this quote I heard her say on her masterclass years ago. She said something about it's hard when a child or should I say something along the lines of a child feels when they're born into this world and they're not wanted. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to like, oh, we got a baby coming and counting down and preparing versus, who gonna take care of this child? You know. And she said something about that. And so he mentioned that his dad didn't want him. Jason did. He said, why can't I didn't write down what he said, but he said something pertaining to like his dad was saying he wasn't going to be there at the birth and all those kinds of things. And I just wonder how many of us, really weren't born into that excitement, or into a space where the world was ready to receive us. Well, my daddy told me that I was born into wanting to be had unexpected, but still well received. But I wonder how much that has played into even men having not feeling that connection to their fathers or feeling a stronger connection because you are a boy. Because I know sometimes obviously men be want sons, and us girls feel that like, well, yeah, you could be a daddy's girl, but also he wants a boy. Like he wants a son. Like my daddy and stepmama kept trying till they got a boy, So talk about that whole being born, the environment you were born into and how that plays into your manhood or what you come to know to be your manhood now, present day looking back. Gone.
I can't speak to because I mean I don't. This is a good question. I never asked my parents. I mean, my parents had a plan, and we're all 6 years apart, so I was playing. So some was but
you have.
I have two older brothers. We're all exactly 6 years apart, almost. So
okay.
They had some strange little OCD stuff going on. But I am a big believer in touch when you're a child. I'm a big believer in, if the only time my dad touches me, if he doesn't hug me and stuff like that, but the only touch that I get from him is to scold me or to spank me or something like that. You know what I'm saying? It's not balanced out. I'm a real big believer in that. That a child actually needs to not only hear affection in your voice, but also see affection in your actions toward them and feel warmth and stuff like that. So I know I didn't get that from either parent. As a matter of fact, now that I think about it, I need to think about that some more. But I know that I got that more than my brothers did, and I see the effect that it has on them. And I see the effect that has on them, even in their raising of their children and in their relationship with their wives and stuff like that. They don't have the level of affection and stuff that I do, just because we grew up in a whole different environment and stuff like that. And there's this book that another deep book that, brother, if you just want to break down stuff like it's called Healing of the Masculine Soul. That kind of walks through all that. As a matter of fact, when Tracy comes back home, we went to church together. Our pastors had the men go through that. But it's a book that actually talks about just the markers of trauma that we collect that we don't speak about just because we're at that age, we're not mature enough to even process it yet. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I don't. So yeah.
Who was that book by? Do you recall?
I do not know. I'll find out. I'll look it up in just a second too. I'll find that out.
Okay.
But the Healing of the Masculine Soul. Yeah.
So have you ever inquired about what the environment was like that you were born into?
Bro, I was just thinking. I thought about this the other day. I don't think I was planned for it. And I was thinking like, man, remember I said to you the other day, men shouldn't like when they hear a girl is pregnant, like they shouldn't be like, oh snaps, that shouldn't be their first reaction. I guess I'm old snaps, baby. But, I don't know. It's like if, and that's deep. I'm thinking as this we go along, but
well, listen, you may have a homework assignment. That's what you're gonna have to go ask.
But they might say I was playing for it, or my brother was playing for it, but I don't think. I think because But anyway, I don't think my earthly father had a plan, but my heavenly father did.
That's good.
So
that's good.
And when I was thinking about like my daddy and how you know, when I like really forgave him for not being the father that I wanted, um, I guess long time ago before that, I thank God for God, you know, that I had a heavenly father, you know, whether I had my earthly father was there for me like I wanted to or not, but he was always there for me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
even when I wasn't walking with him, he was there. So
That's real. Yeah.
yeah, but um, it's a big difference when you're playing for a kid, you know,
Yeah.
and instead
And
of
are excited about the
yeah,
kid.
yeah, and excited about the kid, you know.
Yeah.
So clearly the kid can pick up on that. And ever since I heard Oprah say that, I was always curious, like, what was the environment when I was born? I know my parents weren't married. I know they were in college, so I
Yeah.
don't even know, you know, what that was until my mom's deceased. And so I was able to ask my daddy, and he told me. And even I asked my aunt, I believe too. She was like, "Oh no, we were so glad you were coming," you know,
Mhm.
because they hadn't had a baby in a couple years, you know, in the family. So it was a little bit of excitement.
I wonder how that what's the effect on that kids who are playing for and the incarceration rate in this country. You know,
Wow.
That's
yeah,
interesting.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking of my cousins the ones that I was playing for. You know, my mama's younger sister, the
Mm-hmm.
kids was playing for. My mama's older sister, the two youngest ones were playing for, but the oldest one wasn't. I don't think.
Mm.
And
Mm.
like my little brother was playing for it, but
Mhm.
me and my older brother, I don't think was.
Mm.
Mhm.
And well, for me, well, I'll talk.
I was about to say now he getting into the book he's about to write.
That's cool. That's interesting. Yeah, that's cool.
Later.
Yeah.
uh,
No, that's a cool point, man. That's I mean, because there's real correlations out there, man, that we need to look at.
yeah.
And I've done some work with MBK, and that we talk about that, that prison pipeline, man. It's no joke. There's a lot of factors that lead to, and most of it is men looking for some level of affirmation. Men, the earlier we can actually be involved in some kind of group dynamic, you know what I'm saying, where we feel loved, supported, and guided, anything like that, the better off we're gonna be. And you're right. If you come into an environment where you don't have that, you know what I'm saying, where you're not embraced in somewhere, anything like that, then yeah, what does that put you on a pathway for? How do you feel? How do you then even learn how to like socialize when you get in a school setting and stuff like that? And, you know, so yeah, and half the kids are getting in trouble in schools because they're just trying to get attention that they're not getting at home.
Yeah, statistically, I should be in jail.
Yeah, but most of us should. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, like I was saying about the Planned Parenthood, like both of my brothers that I grew up with, I got 7 siblings. I grew up with 2.
Mhm.
They both have life in prison.
Mhm.
And my oldest cousin, the one I said that I don't think was necessarily planned for, he was locked up from the time I was 15 till
Couple years ago.
yeah, a couple years ago. You know, so but all the cousins that were planned for, um,
They haven't spent time in jail.
yeah,
Oh, that's interesting.
It makes a difference. It makes a
yeah,
difference because you got to think about like the stress of thinking about who gonna care for this baby, who gonna pay for this baby, who gonna take care of this baby, how we gonna split responsibilities. Yeah. Are we gonna stay together? If they like in my case they weren't even married, so are we gonna be together? Are we gonna break up?
Mhm.
It's so much involved in there, and that child
hmm
feels that, which brings me to the next chapter, which we ain't gonna go to every chapter, but it was just notes I was taking along the way. Um, it was called Chapter 3, Tragedy and Tears,
hmm
and it made me think about the whole discussions. I don't know if y'all heard of epigenetic, where it's the compounded experience from one passed down from one generation to another, but like internally, like the emotional trauma of these things. They studied it in depth with like Jewish people in the Holocaust, and they find those trauma markers within them
Mhm.
scientifically. And I know that there are some people wanting to push forward in the study of us descendants of slaves that want to they want to study us more too and see how the trauma that was in our heritage, how it has
yeah,
passed down to us. And so Y'all can speak to that however you want to, however you feel led of the Lord. Uh-huh.
I think that stuff gets into your DNA.
That's what it, yeah, that's the name
So
for it, yeah.
that's why you said that too. The quote I highlighted in the book says, sometimes I think people feel the desire or need to recover something wrong in order to make it right. You know,
So not even really knowing what the wrong is, but like something is just off.
Feels right.
Yeah.
And that's funny. When I went to college, I was like in a little country town. I'm not from a big town, but this town I went to college was even smaller, you know. And it's like when I went around, if it resembled the hood, I felt comfortable.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
You know? And I got a homeboy. He probably still to this day. It's like every city he go to, he looks for the hood.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, what is your thoughts on the whole genetic passing down of that trauma?
It's interesting when you talk about that, because I actually thought I when I went through the book, I went back and I thought about it from the first story that he started with his granddad, and that's why I was like, okay, so I see the evolution of the book and I see where we're going and all that, but I still thought that was an interesting marker of, hey, this is the first base story that kind of goes down,
right?
The thread that goes all the way through. And so when you say that, I think of that as even the foundational piece of how he even started the book with this, this shared trauma that we pass down. And in some ways we almost take ownership of it. We almost take a little bit of pride in it. So we almost use it as it defines us a little bit unhealthily sometimes, you know what I'm saying? Because we have this trauma, so now we're looking for it. But yeah, that's what I thought about even from the very first story. It's like that was his first impression of a man and stuff like that, Yeah.
I think he also got his strength and resilience from his grandfather as well.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I actually kind of looked at, if you look at some of his more descriptive stories, when he starts talking about his cousin and stuff like that, he talks about the interaction they had. When he talked about his grandfather, he talked about the environment, he talked about the feeling in the air, he talked about the people, and here's the thing, he wasn't there.
Yeah. Wow.
So he describes that in such detail. He wasn't there. So that means this story was passed down to him with such detail and vitriol that he spit it off. But when he talks about his own life experience, he's added less detail. So I was even kind of looking at stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, that's how we kind of pass that stuff. And it's good. We got to pass down our heritage.
Yes.
We got to pass down a part of our heritage, which is necessary. But we got to have a real balance to it, how we use that trauma to talk about our strengths and not just our struggle.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. That's such a great point that you bring up. I didn't even, till you just mentioned it, think about how, he told his story, but he gave us an experience of,
he felt his
and that could definitely be rooted in that whole epigenetic discussion. So another part, or the next part that they kind of go into, well, I'm gonna skip and I'm gonna come back to this one. But one part that broke my heart, and y'all can speak to this from y'all's male perspective, was when he said he and his dad went out for the dinner and he ate the shrimp.
Yeah.
And he, he was just having a good time, looking at his fingers, just happy. And him and his mom and his dad got into an argument because he had poor, skills at the table, table skills. And so, So I just wonder, like, you guys, do you have a memory that comes to mind for you where you were like, man, this is great with me and my dad, and then it was like, oh shoot, okay. It kind of blew up in your face.
Now I don't have to remember with my dad about that, but I mean the part that really got me when he said, how can a father blame a single mother for not teaching his son how to become a accomplished man?
That was a good.
Yeah, that would be then. So, it just reminded me. Well, it's hard to become a man, to see what a man is. To know what a man is if you don't see it. And For me as a teacher, not at this school I'm at, but there's been schools I've been the only man in the school.
Yeah.
And one of the vice principals said it, and I realized it though. She was saying that you might be the only man these kids see all day, every day. So, yeah, it's growing up, I wish that we had more male role models that we could look towards. And my thought, well, I don't know, but I guess I think that my brothers wouldn't have chose the paths they chose, if there was more, male role models, So I try to be that, for these kids, for these young men, these young women. So
Right. Yeah, that's cool, man. That's cool. I actually, I don't pull out a specific instance, but I have a experience that I've been just not dealing with, I used to deal with, but because I viewed my dad expressed love and stuff like that through what he did. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like my dad ever said, I love you, anything like that. He was hard, he was tough with expectations and stuff like that. But he was fairly affirming too, although I don't remember a lot of the affirmation. But I don't know if you had this experience too, man. When I actually started my Christian walk, I relate to when you call God Father, I only got this, my only icon of what a father is my dad. So when I was reading stuff like, God loves you and God is love, I'm like, that's cool. That means that how God loves me then is either what he does for me or how he's watching over me or how he's judging what I'm doing, anything like that. So I didn't experience a holistic, warm, loving thought process or relationship with God because I was basing my relationship with God on what I saw from my dad.
wow.
So boy, it was a lot just to push through when they talk about worship and all this other stuff, man. That was a lot for me to push through just because I didn't even have the image of what it is, and that affected even my walk with Christ. That affected how I saw people around me and stuff like that because they seemed like they were experiencing something I wasn't experiencing. You know what I'm saying? And then just to I don't know, you probably we can probably talk about this offline. I don't know about how God works with you versus how he worked with your wife. But it was like my wife would pray, you know what I'm saying? My ex-wife would pray, and it would it'd be a response right away. It'd be like stuff that would happen right away. And I'd be like, well, God, no, boy. But it was just, man, just learning to relate to God as Father, man, that was different for me. I was reading the Bible totally different than how other people were reading the Bible. I was seeing Father as totally different, I was understanding Jesus hanging on the cross from a whole different perspective of God having him hang on the cross and all that. So it's a lot. It's a lot in what we show our kids and how that translates, just like even definition of what a father was and all that. So that's just my kind of struggle that I went through with that, just looking at that way.
Yeah. Wow. I just just talking to you was like just thinking like the differences, because you thinking as God as God the Father as comparison to your father. I'm thinking, I think me and a lot of men without the father in the home are thinking of God in replace of their father.
Yeah.
Not a comparison. So and it's like we're looking at God and like, man, like since my earthly father's not there, I got a heavenly father I can count on. Yeah, I can depend on. Yeah,
that's real cool.
Yeah, I guess
Didn't have nothing to compare it
to. I don't know. I guess everything's relative, but if you look at it like that, it could be easier.
But
because I don't agree. It depends. Everything. It's like because. I mean, if you have a father who has the attributes of God, it's easy.
Yeah. But if you don't have a father, you can kind of read about God and let him be himself. And then some people, they have a relationship where they just where they, even if they didn't have that, even if they, whether they did or didn't have it, they could have an anger towards God, whether they had it from their father that was absent or the father that was there in the home. They can have an anger towards God and resist Him completely because they don't have that trust in other men like that.
And that comes out in the actions. I was just reading we react to certain situations how we view God. If we think God is angry, is always punishing us, that's how we might treat other people.
Right.
But if we know that God is love, God is forgiving, God is patient, God is full of grace.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about this book from time to time. One of the books that we both came to figure out that we both had read at different points was The Shack by William something. I can't remember his name, but that helped me a lot. I had a pretty decent relationship with God. I grew up in church and all that stuff, but that helped me see, because I grew up in a rather kind of legalistic environment, so seeing God the way it was illustrated, he was illustrating that book, even as coming as a Black woman, that has its own complications in the world. I get that, but it was that God will come to us and meet us where we are to show up for us. And it wasn't all this, I don't like you, you did this bad. He just sitting up on this throne, pointing at you. And that was my interpretation of what God was. Until I read that book and then started to really look in the Bible in a way outside of what I was just being taught. Able to see God a different way and relate to Him in a different way. I think we all have that crossroad where we come to know God for who He really is and not who we portray Him to be.
I mean, you bring up a really interesting perspective, man, because I deal with these young boys, and I've talked to a few young boys whose father wasn't there. And I think that because he wasn't there, they weren't able to formulate an image of what God was really like. So in other words, so when they would pray, they're not even anticipating to hear anything back because they aren't accustomed to having a communication back and forth with God. They weren't expecting anything from God. You see all these promises in the book and stuff like that, but it becomes very much story because they had no way of actually relating. And man, you saying that because I had no way of actually physically relating, so now I can actually formulate this, this beautiful romanticized view of a loving father is beautiful, man. Because a lot of brothers weren't able to make that leap, and I'm actually going to take that back to them too. A lot of brothers struggle to make that leap to kind of formulate, okay, what is God the Father then and stuff like that. So they can relate to Him as God the Judge, easy to relate to God the Judge, easy to relate to Him as God or whatever. But when you talk about a loving Father who actually has a relationship with me, man, I gotta handle my own life, I gotta handle my own stuff and all that because it's me, myself, and I. So that's a beautiful testimony, man. That's how that's the way He walked you through it, man. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I don't think I got that until I got older. Like growing up, my church, I got the law, what not to do, didn't get grace, and didn't know God for myself, until I got older. I was in college and started really walking with God, spending time with His people, and had the revelation of who God was for myself. That's when I got that.
That's cool, man. That's a blessing. Thanks for sharing. That's a blessing, bro. Definitely.
It makes it all worth it. Let's see. So going on to the next part. How he was saying that the absence of the name of that chapter was The Absence of Affirmation, and he was talking about how and y'all kind of touched on this already, grasping for something to kind of find some identity, some structure, some something. And how many men have turned to sports? Just a note I took. How many men have turned to sports for some sort of structure, authority, discipline, which makes it. I have asked him this so many times because he's very much into sports. He's very athletic, and I have wondered, like, what is the thing? Like, I have heard men that I know literally like hate other teams or people of other things, like not just in that kind of playful sportsman kind of way, but literally hate,
Yes.
or
Yes.
all these
Yeah.
rules. And I'm just like, I
Oh,
don't get it. And particularly when it comes to football. So like football is just this thing that I don't get. And I have, me being the emotional person, the counselor, the kind of human behavior person that I am, I've always kind of wondered and questioned, what it's got to be some deeper connection to sports than just, oh, my team's playing. Like, what is that thing that makes sports so, especially football, so in the heart of men,
You want to take that first, bro? You want to take that
I know
first, bro? Go ahead. Go
it's literally like, let me in the
no,
game, coach. Let me in the game.
You want to take that first, bro?
it's both sides. No, it's I don't
But you're
think.
probably right.
No, I don't think it's just men. Here in Texas, a lot of women love football.
Well, I mean, they love it, but I'm talking
No,
about, I have
no.
seen men
I know.
really love it.
No, I'm saying here. I guess you don't got the experience, but women really love like that. Well, anyway, back to men.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, back to men.
You probably said it soul ties. It really probably is the thing.
Is that-
It's the first time that you probably felt some type of structure, some type of healthy representation of what it means to not just play a sport, but be a man.
Well, just playing sports. For me, it wasn't something like I wanted to do just to, feel like a man or a young boy. It's just something I love to do, for me. And it was something, well, I guess some of them sports I was good at, I was good at basketball.
He literally, every time a sport come up, I'd be like, what about what the hacky sack? Yeah, I was great at that.
No, I wasn't great at hacky sack. I was
because he was
80s. That was at one time.
he was like, I had a little game.
No. But for me, it's something I just love to do, and
But you've even said how basketball was like before you really came to know God on your own. You said that basketball was like your escape from because he grew up in such a turbulent environment.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's something I love to do, something I was good at, and it did give me peace, just playing. A lot of times I play by myself and practice by myself, and I guess it was a safe haven,
Mm-hmm.
So it was a safe haven, and I was really competitive. And for me, like when I watch sports, I for me, I want my team to win, and I think like some of it, like, it could be the affiliation with your city or a player that you like and you admire, So for me, like, my favorite is OU football, and for me, that's my home state, and what? What do you think about?
I'm just viewing this nothing. Just your love for OU. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, she's talking about when they lose, which doesn't happen often. We don't lose much.
I see.
We probably lost like 5-6 games last 5-6.
What's your thoughts on the whole idea of sports? Oh, you done?
Well, I'm just saying, for me, it's my competitive nature and soul ties.
Well, Trey, for most of us, for most men, especially we got to sports when we were involved young, that is the first place where we found affirmation, respect, and a place where we fit in and belong outside of the home. And so it's rare to find that kind of a controlled environment, even in the classroom and otherwise. You know what I'm saying? Where you got, these are my boys, these are my boys. They accept me for who I am. I acclimate to them, and we become really homogenous when we get in sports and stuff like that. We all kind of, especially when you're younger, we all hang together. We all like the same things. We talk about the same things. We go through the same experiences, and we start being a support structure outside of the home that you really don't find in other places. And that support structure gives us affirmation, which is actually everything. It gives us affirmation of our maleness and our manhood. It gives us affirmation of our goodness and our worth, because now we're good at something. That's what you said. Like, I'm like him. I love to practice. I love to practice. I know that I'm gonna be better than the next guy, because I know I'm gonna get some affirmation of my goodness, whether it be a trophy. I'll be honest with you, forget about trophies. Your boys pat you on the back saying good play and stuff like that means the world to you. Means the world to you, even more than all them trophies and everything else. So it actually gives us a structure outside of the home where we feel wanted, needed, desired, and valued that you almost don't get in any other way. And so that kind of continues all the way through. And because we feel that so much of that connection, we actually project that now in our older age and stuff like that. Because I don't know about you, brother. I ain't jumping like I used to, so I'm not playing sports like I used to. But we can project, and we understand what them. We understand when Tariq makes a play, when somebody makes a play on the field or something like that. We understand what that feels like, and we understand work and the preparation and what it took. So we can actually project what's actually happening from our own experience. We can put ourselves into the game. You know, most kids, you know, when we're younger, we all want to be superheroes, and boys acclimate to superheroes. So we think about what it's like to be Superman, and we wear costumes and put little stuff on because we can project ourselves onto these icons that we're seeing. So as we're younger, if we've had good experiences with sports, then that just, man, it's euphoric for us, because it takes us back to a time where we felt connected, where we felt affirmed, where we didn't feel like, where we felt safe. It connects us back to a structure that we used to have and that we still long for. And especially in our older life, it's hard to find outside of our household and family.
That's
good.
That is good. That's good. I think, first time ever got accolades, I was a good student, National Junior Honor Society, all that, honors roll, principal's honors roll. But even for that, I didn't get the love I did when I made a basket.
Especially from your other men, from your boys.
Right.
And from fans, 8 years old, people cheering your name, so and just thought about that while you was talking, like, okay, all that plus, the hard work, you appreciate things more when you work hard for it, and to get those skills, you worked hard to improve your skills.
It's really a direct.
You appreciate that. You appreciate hard work. Like for me, after Jordan retired, my favorite player for a while was Kevin Garnett, because I love his heart, the way he played. It was like the passion. It's like, man. And so for me, that's what it is. And as a coach, it's frustrating because these kids want to be good without putting in the work.
You know what? This is really making a full circle, because he coaches basketball now, but he coaches at a magnet school where they're more, the kids are there because they're in performing arts and stuff like this, so they don't get their affirmations from sports, so they're not as invested as he was.
That's gonna be tough, bro. That's gonna be.
Well, my last 2 games of the season was, man, it made me feel a lot better about me and coaching, man. Because we won the second to last. The last game we lost, prior to like the best team though, but we played hard, and
you can respect that.
Yeah, I respect that. My kids, they fought. They was just more talented than us, but we put up a good fight, and we had the lead for a while. But they played with heart,
And I can see now why with this, you've given it a wonderful name, a soul tie. Saying it's a soul tie, it is, because at such a developmental young age, like you said, it was the first time you got affirmed, and first time that your actual hard work was directly related to the accolades that you received and all that.
And the other thing is with that, the lifelong transferable skills, like hard work, dedication, discipline, being on time, being punctual. For me, that's all part of my life now. Like I'm really disciplined. Like,
and it came from that.
Yep. When it comes to me working out, now finally, when it comes to reading my word, when it comes to being at work, you know, I'm like the first or second one at work every morning, like 30 or 40 minutes for everybody, you know, because that came from me being an athlete, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, cool.
And so for me as a coach, you know, win or lose, you know, I want y'all to be disciplined. I want y'all to work hard, and I want to build character, you know,
Yeah.
the character that was built to me from playing sports, you know. That's why I want to you know, building my athletes, you know. So
Cool.
Y'all really have given me a new respect for sports.
But let me ask you this: you relate to this too? What it gets is because like as men, we're not as intuitive as women, so we
Yeah.
don't. I don't feel as comfortable going through relationship stuff as women. When we got you know just when we got into sports, I knew that if I ran this route and cut left and caught that ball, I did a good job.
yeah,
I knew what I was supposed to do, and when I did it right, I got an affirmation for it. If I
Wow.
didn't do it right, you know, if I had a graceful coach, he was cool. If I didn't do it right and kept not doing it right, he kicked my butt for it. I got immediate response, you know what I'm saying, relative to am I doing something right? Am I doing something wrong? It was a real safe environment that I know what I can do, supposed to be doing. And if I do it right, I'm gonna be rewarded for it. If I do it wrong, I'm gonna get immediate feedback for it. And most of life is not like that.
yeah,
Most of life requires you to be more intuitive. It's a very safe environment. And then you got a coach that's there to give you that feedback. You always got, you know, you got a good coach like who is there to give that immediate feedback, who can give that pat on the back that you might not be getting in almost any other environment. So I mean, it's a really special place. It's a really special place for brothers. It's a place where we can talk, we can vent, we get affirmation. We got a male coach usually that we can kind of look up to who's showing us the way. And if we do it the right way, then we're gonna have success, and we're gonna know when we're successful. We're gonna know when we did it right. And man, that's a big thing all the way through. That's a big thing that I think that if wives and women understood. Listen, if your husband had the feedback on what he's doing right, he will do it right. If we get, you know, attention based or not, you know, not deficit feedback, but you know, positive feedback, your man, trust me, you can get your man to do whatever you want your man to do.
that's good, brother. And the thing about that is, like, if you got a good enough coach and you become a good enough player, student of the game, you know what you did before the coach even had to say it. You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
you can
You
identify
build your
that.
own confidence
Yep.
too.
So, like, if I miss a play, if I was supposed to set this pick and go over the screen, and my player did something else, like, as soon as it happens, you know, I know it happened.
Self-correction.
Yeah.
Or if I get there late, rotate late over, then foul somebody, you know. Of course, immediately I know I need to be in help position so I can be there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
You know how to.
And Tracy, what you don't understand because you haven't had the experience is that brother has practiced that screenplay 1,000 times.
Yeah.
1,000 times. So when you see it, so when he's watching and he sees that thing going to perfection in a pick and roll in a game, it's like, man, that is crazy. You know how hard they had to work on that, and we recognize the artistry of it. You recognize that.
That's the way I feel about like music. That's the way I feel about when I'm watching maybe a Oprah show or a y'all getting a breakthrough. I'm like, I know what this.
Hey,
exactly. You know the question they had to walk them down to bring them to that place. Exactly. You understand the art. That's how we know the sports.
And when it comes together is beautiful. Like,
yeah.
Like, man, when I was in college my senior year, you gotta have to meet my boy. He lives down here. My two guard, we had a pick and roll. I don't think nobody in the nation could stop. Like, either he was gonna shoot a 3 or I was gonna get alley-oop dunk, you know. So it was no stop because we just worked so well together, you know, and we knew each other so well, you know. So, yeah.
Trace, this is what I like about you. See, and when you listen to your man and the passion in his voice when he's talking about certain things, you know what I'm saying? All people don't know how to unlock that. It's not just about talking about sports. It's not just about sitting in front of TV. It's about finding something that your man connects to. And then when he's in that place of connection, then bring that connection to something else safely. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's a way to bridge you.
Y'all are really, I'm going to share this. I'm going to require this video, at least this portion especially, because a lot of women, we're just like, this is so stupid. Like, this is so foolish to sit here for hours on end to hear this. And then when him and his friends get together and different men, they just sit around and talk about. And I'm just like, now I get it. Now I see the emotional connection to it that is not ever discussed, because obviously y'all ain't in your own circles before now, ain't really gonna talk about it from that angle of, oh, this is something I just really feel my passion. Y'all gonna talk about it from the X's and O's and just the practicality of it. Yeah. But for a woman to hear how y'all are sitting here right now, even having this conversation, and how it's so much bigger than just the bouncing of the ball or the throwing of it, it really makes a difference.
So you see why, like, when we tell stories, like, well, I used to, like, I make it a sports reference.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And men, that's the crazy part.
You know,
that's so funny to me, because y'all be like remembering. I remember that one shot I had when I was 15 years old, and I'm like,
right, because it felt good. The endorphins was flowing.
About human behavior is that when something is connected to an emotion, it lasts longer. So now it makes sense. Now it makes sense. That has not made sense to me. I'm sorry.
I remember
up until now.
You took me back.
Oh no!
I mean,
we gotta move on.
I mean, the first time I dunked.
Good though, Tracy. This is beautiful. You're gonna see what this how to open up your man.
Dunking on two. Actually, it was two of my cousins. If you're out there watching, no. So you know how you've been telling parables lately?
Yes, I do.
So, when you tell your parables,
tell them in
sports.
I don't know.
But
I can help you. So, like, when you talk about hiding the talents. So this coach gave him two balls. One of them had the ball, he was dropping in one place. The other one had the ball, and he was just spraying the
Okay, I get it. That is amazing.
Back to
I'm loving this dynamic though, because it's like I don't always talk to you, but you talk to young people, young women and stuff like that, and they're like, oh, I don't understand my man. How do I open my man up? And he seems to be, because we're compartmentalized, and I know the women don't understand that because they're very fluid in what they do. But when you got your brother like that, the endorphins are flowing, he's having a good thing, to be able to connect and say, cool, this is when you tell me another time when you felt like that outside of sports. And then be able to pull that dialogue into something else, you pulling your man into a whole different space, instead of when he's in his box or something like that, and you trying to force a conversation or anything like that. I forgot one book talked about getting in your man's box. You know what I'm saying? Climbing his box a little bit, find him in his box, and then make it very, very fluid. I was always compartmentalized, like, because I used to work a lot and all that, and my wife used to always say, let's go for a drive. And matter of fact, she used to make up trips, like, let's just drive to Atlanta, just because she understood that as I was getting out of the environment, as I was driving away from the city, as I'm driving away from my desk and my computer, my brain started to switch a little bit. And it was a lot easier to open what she considered open me up and talk about different stuff. And those are the best things that, you got to know how to open up your man. You know what I'm saying? You got to know what his things are. Your man's sports is one of his things. You know what I'm saying? So finding what that thing is and climbing in his box with him, your man will always be open to you and stuff like that. I don't know how we got in that direction. But
I know, but you know what? You're going in a good direction, because the next chapter is called The Pressure of Promiscuity. And it's talking about, of course, obviously the interaction with women and young women and everything like that. And let me see. Okay. And I just put the only thing. Oh, look, the only question I come up with is why do y'all do that to one another? Why do y'all pressure each other into having sex? Because he was saying how his experience was that he wasn't really ready to do it, but because the pressure from the others, he felt like he had to go and jump out there and and do that. And he was like, they don't even know. I just listened, because I was re-listening to different parts of the book today. He was just saying how. I just heard him mentioning how he hadn't. He said they don't realize what happened. They don't realize what they took from me or what they made me give up. So y'all speak to that whole idea of what?
That's easy. That part is easy. That goes to a whole lot of different things of why we get into negative behaviors. But the bottom line is definition of a manhood amongst your peers. You want to be seen as a man amongst your peers and stuff like that. And for us, the unhealthy stuff when we growing up, especially without fathers to guide us, is how many girls can you sleep with? How many girls can you get? If you a virgin, you ain't a man. You can't get a girl phone. I don't know about you, brother. We used to walk out of the skating rink and stuff like that. The brothers used to get together and say, how many phone numbers you got? We used to pull out this little piece of paper. Who got the most phone numbers? And half of them we lied and wrote stuff on it anyway. How many of y'all kissed the girl and stuff like that? It's about the affirmation of respect among your peers is primal for young men. And we find all these negative ways to do it. That's why people get jumped into gangs. That's why when you get into gang, to get into a gang, you got to do something stupid. You know what I'm saying? You got to do something to prove your maleness and your manhood. And we all have
the manhoodiness, the more goofy it is coming up, the more it makes you a man.
It depends. Remember back when we were in Africa and stuff like that, a rite of passage, which was a controlled rite of passage around older and elder men, was you had to go away and you had to hunt, or you had to survive alone for 3 days. And when you came back, you were embraced by the men of the tribe and stuff like that. You were embraced and you were respected. And now we're saying now you are a man. We don't have those prescriptive rites of passage now, especially not in urban environments. So all that is defined by the OGs. That's all defined by what we say with each other. That's all defined by the stupidity that we actually come with when we're all searching for the exact same thing. So we do really, really stupid things. And if we don't get our manhood defined in God at a young age, then you'll find that 40-year-old dude is out there trying to hit on 22-year-old girls. That's still trying to go to figure out stuff like that. Because you're defining your manhood by how many women you can get. You're in that state of arrested development where you haven't grown to show that manhood is defined by how I can protect, how I can support, how I can provide, how I can pass on a legacy, how I can reflect God in the earth. Your manhood is defined by what other people think. And if you look on social media is filled with a ton of people who all they care about is what other people think, because they still find their definition in other people outside of them. So it's crazy because it seems like a silly thing, but man, that peer pressure is strong. Even as men, even when he had the bachelor party thing, I get that. I get it. You can be strong and everything else. You can feel that, and your boys like, let's go do that. And man, you feel that tug inside because you don't want to look like less of a man to your boys. And those are some hard places and stuff like those are some hard decision points and trigger points for a man, because you're struggling between what you know in this new life of my manhood is in God, but you also spent 20, 30 years in this other dynamic of my man is also prescribed in my relationship with other men around me. So yeah, that's a difficult, and that Christian walk, a lot of times can be devoid of men and masculinity and male relationships. I'm not going to have the 20 dudes I had around me in the football team sometimes when I go to church. You know what I'm saying? When I'm in Christ and stuff like that. We don't find those same structures are harder to find in church, unfortunately. So we live our lives still trying to find how, up until the day we die, how do we affirm our manhood and our maleness to certain people? But it's why he and his dad actually cried when his dad finally told him he loved him. All those years, his dad still never felt like a good dad until he said that 60, 70 years down the line. So we spend our lives searching for that affirmation of our maleness and our maleness. Yeah.
That's so good. Because like I'm thinking about we get, as women, we get pressures too. We hear things. We have, you got the girls, or even now the women who are, oh girl, you need to just this way or that way or whatever as pertains to relationships and sex and all that stuff. I'm just going back, since we're talking more about the developmental years, going back to growing up, I personally had a very strong resolve. My grandma drilled things into me. You know what I'm saying? On how to just stand for myself. It don't matter what your friends say. It don't matter, and I'm just like, how, I don't know if this is the right word that I'm asking or the right question. How is it then that men or boys don't have that same resolve, even if they're growing up in the same house? they still have that it matters more what all these outside people say than what I know within myself is the right thing to do. And that right there is mind-boggling to me, because I ain't never been so impacted by other people that I'm gonna just do the wrong thing. Like if I'm gonna do the wrong thing, it's gonna be like I'm finna do wrong, and that's what I'm finna do because I want to do it, not because you said. But to hear you saying how much pressure that men feel to conform, it really boggles my mind.
Yeah, and Earl, you said everything that I would have said about men, and as black men, like we don't have a rite of passage here. And I was just reading the other book, the other Westmore, and South Africa. They go away, then they come back, and he was talking about he saw this young man, and the way he was walking and way he was carrying himself was something different about him. He just went to the rite of passage in like South Africa, and like the way he walked and the way like before they go on the rite of passage, it's like people still treat him like a kid, but then there's a respect level, and here in America, especially African Americans, we don't have it. Jews have bar mitzvahs,
Something to mark the new year.
and so and I don't think this even necessarily came from other men, came from other boys. So, and foolishly, we just like, man, you get with a girl, that makes you a man,
Yeah.
So by that end, and people, like you said, like the film to conform. Me, I was different, I grew up in the same environment, same house as my brothers, my cousins, I never feel the pressures of society. I have a saying that I use, a quote. I make diamonds with pressures while pipes are bursting around me. Because there was pressure. For me, I was a virgin all through high school. And I wasn't. People said stuff about me. It wasn't going to. I wasn't going to do something I didn't want to do just to please everybody else. I was cool with doing me.
Where do you think you got that from? Because like you said, that's just not the norm. Where do you think you got that resolve?
It's something the guy put in me, and so it's big when you don't know who you are.
Yeah.
And also it's big when you don't know why you exist.
Yeah.
So one of the quotes that I highlighted was, when a young man knows why he exists, he will no longer risk his existence.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
It said, but sadly, my father wasn't around to show my purpose, but my heavenly Father was still there. So when you know your why,
and
you know who you are, you move different.
Yeah, that's true.
You move different. It's like like we going around without a GPS or atlas or a map. So it's just wandering around in the wilderness.
Yeah.
So you don't know why, but if you know your purpose, what you're called to do, and you'll start moving towards that.
I'm glad you bring up that it's God, where you can place that glory back to Him for having instilled that in you even before you really had that real intimacy with Him. Because I was thinking about, this was the next place I was going to after all this stuff has happened. Then his brother goes away and finds the Lord, and as he said, brought his friend back home with him. And he went and got in Jesus for real.
And you don't hear nothing else about him in this whole story. You just hear that about him. He come in and out. He come in.
Right. He wasn't even he didn't even mention him as much as he did the brother that got killed. But when he came in like a flood, and he was like, there was no. I had wrote something down. I was trying to find it.
I got it.
He said there was no
battle.
Yes, that's the one.
There was no battle that was his.
Yeah, there was no battle that was his own. Anything that was bothering his brother, anything that was concerning him, He took it to God. He took it to Yah, as he said. And I was just like, this boy came in and literally saved the whole family, through his testimony and his experience. So what was that like for y'all when y'all finally came to know Christ for yourself? How did that impact your manhood? Because like you mentioned earlier, you said, church traditionally has been heavy on the women's side, and heavily impacted or heavily geared towards women. And so sometimes men can't really find their place in the church, So how did that, and that's for both of y'all, how did coming to truly know Christ for yourself, impact the way you did manhood?
That's interesting. That's interesting. For me, if my walk is probably similar to a lot of people. If you come into a church environment, then you learn about God from man first, from a man's perspective first, from what's actually being preached, what people tell you, boy, you got to pray, boy, you got to do this, you got to do that. So you're learning. From my perspective, I learned a lot about God, but I didn't have a relationship with God. I don't know what that clicking thing was. I don't know whether it was tragedy and stuff like that, which is usually my kind of entree into, okay, God, what's up? Let's have a real conversation.
Right.
It's like tragedy is happening, something like that. Then you start really getting into it. I don't know what that point really was. But for me, it's usually pain or anything like that breaks down all my facades and gets me into real authenticity. So somewhere around there, somewhere in around college time and stuff like that. Oh no, I know what it was. Oh no, I know exactly what it was. No, I know what it was. My girlfriend got pregnant. No, man, I started getting real bad right about then. No, but yeah, but when I had my son, really trying to understand manhood and maleness, and I wanted to give him some spirituality. I wanted him to do right. So I've had him in church and stuff like that. But yeah, man, I went through some real tough and confusing points, but I was like, God, what's up? Well, I was really alone, and for me, because I love music, learning to worship and be real with worship and stuff like that, that's what really, really got me into feeling a real tangible presence of God. Really, and it's weird because I always talk to, and I talk to a lot of guys too, who you hear a lot of people say, like, especially women, God told me this, and I heard him say that. Well, I ain't heard God say nothing to me. Not like that. God don't talk to me like that. I get impressions and I kind of understand, or I get a piece about something I'm doing, or I know where to go, or at times he kind of helps you say what to say. But yeah, it was a moment of, for me, just struggling somewhere in life, and we all go through struggles where I had to get really, really real and say, I want to change my life. And God, I need you to help change my life. And then taking these steps to actually do it, actually pursuing him. Not just saying, okay, God, I'm good, please help me and stuff like that. No, I actually had to, literally, like my brother said, I had to get a little bit of self-discipline, man, because that was my way of, if you just want me to read the Bible and stuff like that without me setting out a plan of I'm gonna read this at 9 o'clock at night, it's not gonna happen. So I had to create it in my environment. But man, God just did some, and plus God did some incredible stuff, man. That was just, that I couldn't deny it was him.
So it's not just a God rescue me and glad that's over, but God rescue me, show up for me, and now how do I show up for you?
Yeah,
and that's how it started to really change your perspective of how you walk out this manhood thing.
Yeah, I'm definitely a David type. I'm that one that'll mess stuff up as far as you can mess it up, and then like God help me and stuff like that. But the story of David helped me too, because I'm one who deals with a lot of self-condemnation, a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, beat myself up when I do stuff wrong.
Have you done the Enneagram?
Huh?
Have you done the Enneagram?
No,
I'll send it to you then.
Okay, all right, yeah. But yeah,
I'm not gonna tell you which one I think you are. I'll just wait till you do it and you tell us which one you are. But okay. I think the same thing I am. But go ahead.
That story of David and how God related to David and stuff like that freed me up a lot. And I understood why I like music. I understood why David prays to get himself out of his emotions and his head and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just connecting like that helped me, and then it kind of grew from there. But hey, I still struggle. I ain't gonna lie. Yeah.
Oh, we all on the journey. Yeah. Absolutely. So, husband, how did your finding God authentically, not just growing up in church or grandma's God, how did that change the trajectory or improve or enhance your manhood walk?
For me,
You know what? It happened when I was in college, when I started going to Bible study and Sunday school. My Sunday school teacher, who's now our pops, he
Oh yeah.
yeah, he poured into us so hard. So for me, like growing up, you know, I grew up around a lot of white people, but not like in my house, you know. Like at school though, and didn't have the wasn't really fond of police either. And God used this man who was a white police officer, who is now one of our five pops,
Yeah, one of our days.
to help deliver, not deliver. It's like to reveal, to show us who God really was.
That's cool.
That's when I realized what grace was, you know. And He showed us by not just by telling us, but by loving on us, you know.
Even to this day.
Yeah, me and my friend group who are my brothers now, you know. So, but like then being in that group, in that environment, ever since then, you know, I become more open to express myself. And you know, when it started talking to like my friends, my family, you know, that's when like me and my friends really started telling each other we love each other, you know, and started just sharing stuff with each other and start becoming transparent.
Yeah.
And also since then I had more grace for people, you know, and started
He's
saying
one of the most gracious, most loving people I ever met. He had me. I mean, I've had people tell me I was full of grace. When I met him, I'm like, Jesus, I need to come up in my grace walk.
well, because and then another thing, I started looking at people through God's eyes.
Yeah.
You know, and where I used to get angry and impatient and upset, I had more grace in those situations, you know, and realized God is still working on this person, you know, or these people, or maybe even me. God is still working on me in this area. So, like, if I'm working on it, you know, how can I, you know, be mad at them for something I'm struggling with, you know?
That's so good.
Yeah. See, I like that too, because it's almost because you talked about how you had a male figure or anything like that who, and of course, Tracy, I'm gonna go back to a sports analogy, but that's a whole construct. I mean, it's easier. I mean, we respond well where we have good mentorship, even in biblical walk and stuff like that. If we got brothers around us who can kind of show us the way, who we can be accountable to and feel safe with, man, it accelerates our walk and everything. We become a good player, and then we can turn around and then lead somebody else and all that. I mean, it's just like, man, we just work well in that kind of construct. And outside of having that, we're gonna try to find it somewhere. Outside of having that, man, we can just spin out of control.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's beautiful, man. Yeah, definitely.
So
awesome.
Remember that one time we was talking, everything was for the team.
Yeah, he went through a for the team moment.
Everything she said, it was for the team.
Take one for the team. But see, we understood that. Take one for the team. It was like, okay, I'm gonna get the garbage. You know, you understand?
Yeah, absolutely. I just really am enjoying hearing y'all share this, and I'm hoping that because I've seen people popping in and out on the thing. I'm hoping that as men and women too, just even for the opportunity to hear that they're taking away from this, what y'all really hearing what y'all are saying, how God, just that whole relationship with God, you know, it's not about trying to have it all right, have it all put together. Both of y'all both said, I'm still seeing things where I can grow and I can come up. It's not about having everything right or having it all together. It's not about, the preacher trying to take the people money and all that stuff. We're talking about a relationship with a real father, that whether your father was there or not, he can show up for you in ways that you would never imagine. This man obviously didn't like police officers because the whole thing, you know, those situations that he's grown up in, and did not care too much for white people. And God used a whole white police officer to bring him to the faith, like to mature, help him mature in the faith. So God does things in ways you can't even imagine. Just open up to him.
Not that I didn't like I liked him. I didn't love him. Yeah, you know.
Until
you know,
then.
you know, it's like
Well, obviously you were open to it because you wouldn't even been open to hearing pops at all. So yeah.
But but he knows how to speak to us, man. He knows how to get us where we need to be. And I'm glad glad Tracy's not on the line, because it's like when I was in college, I was girl trade crazy. So I went to church. Following a girl to church. And then I kept going to church. That girl was there. And then they had a call to the altar. And she was like, "You want to go up?" I was like, "You want me to go up?" She's like, "All right." I'm at the altar to give my life to Christ for this girl and all that. You know what I'm saying? So he knows how to get us. And we know that altar experience is only an open door. It's a long process after that. But man, I'm like, what am I doing up here again? Yeah, and he knows how to get us, even with our weak places, even when we use our weaknesses against us to get us where we need to be. So yeah, he's funny like that. He's real funny. We're gonna have a real conversation about that one day. But yeah.
So we got a couple, just a few more minutes, because this is always intended to go from 7 to 9. So we coming up on that. So after we talk about all those trials and tribulations, we talk about the redemption piece where he's really able to kind of shift gears because he falls in love with this friend that his brother brings home from college, and Jesus. And then we talk about him and how he came to get to forgiveness with his father, with his even some things with his mom, just coming to understand her experience even better. What are some of the takeaways that y'all have from that? I think this is chapter 17. Freeing my father is what it's called. And it's yeah, well, that's why my only note I took there was it took this man on his last leg to finally tell his boy he was proud of him. I'm like, Jesus Christ, is it that hard? And I wonder, like, what did his dad think was gonna happen if he had told him before then? But anyway, I digress. I want to hear what y'all think on the whole this forgiveness piece and how that redemption piece plays into how you've even dealt with your own fathers.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't have, because like I said, I always view my dad through like rose-colored glasses and stuff like that. So learning that my dad wasn't perfect and stuff like that was just a different experience. But like I talk to my dad now, it's funny. I'll tell you this, which is interesting though, because like I call my dad every other day now, and like now when he says "I love you" on the phone, whether I know it or not, I'm thinking, like I was driving the other day, and he said that we hung up, and I don't know what it was, but I thought about that for like the next 20 minutes driving. And I don't know what that impact was, but I know I hadn't heard it before. But the fact that he said it without me prompting it, not as a response thing, where I'm like, "Hey, Dad, love you." Yeah, I love you. You know what I'm saying? The fact that he said that. But I know that in a lot of other situations, relational stuff and stuff like that, that just, forgiveness on both sides, man, of just letting stuff go. People that have forgiven me. And then also when I've offered forgiveness, and when I've offered people forgiveness, man, it's just being able to let stuff go. And that's not my strong suit. I believe it. People always say forgive, but don't forget and all that. And I'm like, well, if you forgive and you really, really gonna let it go. I mean, we don't forgive like God and all that, but it's like, it just doesn't affect you the same way. So, yeah. I mean, I know personally the power of forgiveness. And I'm like you, bro, I'm big on grace. I'm like, don't talk to me about nobody with nothing, stuff like that, because I know what God did for me and what he's still doing for me. And everybody has their own journey. You know what I'm saying? I always tell my son that God's taking you through your own journey, your own process, bro. So, but yeah, grace and forgiveness and mercy, man, is everything. Even for pastors, I work with a bunch of pastors and all that. And I always deal with people talking about the pastor's this, the pastor's that. I'm like, well, guess what? The pastor's still a man just like you and me.
Yeah.
Just me. And most pastors are doing this under duress. They just trying to be obedient to God and feeling the same way you are, because they still dealing with the same flesh, frustrations, all this other stuff, and they up there still doing it. So it's like, yeah. So I'm like you. Forgiveness, grace, and mercy is. I give it more for other people, and I'm big for other people probably more than I do myself. So, but that forgiveness thing is everything.
Yeah.
How about you? Forgiveness of your dad?
Well, for my dad, I told you that came with me realizing that I can't expect him to give me something that's not in him, and just forgiveness for people in general. It's not tough for me because I don't put a lot of expectations on people. I realize people are fallible, just like I am, and and so I don't put too much weight on what people can do or what people won't do. And so when a man, which a man, male or female, boy or girl, lets me down or don't live up to a certain expectation, I don't hold them against that, because they're fallible, And if they ask for forgiveness, whether they ask for forgiveness or not, sometimes it might take longer than others to forgive someone. I'm gonna forgive them because forgiveness is not for them, it's for us. And so that's how I think about when I think about forgiveness. So and that doesn't mean they have to be. The trust level has to be the same, and you can forgive and
and not restore.
Yeah, and not restore and not be a part of that person's life, and still wish them well.
Yeah.
So
That's when you say that whole forgive and not forget thing. I always take that in two ways. Either somebody's saying, I'm gonna forgive you, I ain't gonna hold this against you, but I'm gonna remember that this is who you are. Like this is how you behave, and so I'm gonna adjust accordingly. But then also people, obviously if something happened to you, you can't just forget it because it happened, so there's that piece. But I think, like you said, Earl, and like you're saying, baby, don't hold things to the point where it's still impacting you, where you still can't you can't move forward. We were just having this discussion. I was on the call, my brother AB Braswell's broadcast called Ready for Relationship, I believe. And I could post the link, anybody who wants to watch it. But we were talking about the whole idea of forgiveness. It was me and two other brothers, and we was talking about it, and just the whole notion of, we're not. You can, like you just said, you can forgive somebody, but the process of reconciliation is a separate process.
Yeah, totally.
Forgiveness process is something you can do in your house by yourself in your own secret closet. Reconciliation is something that the two of you have to come together and set some new terms and agreements on how we're going to proceed forward. So anybody who's struggling with forgiveness, it's not that you are forgetting or releasing them from the wrong they did. It's accepting. This is a definition I use with my clients. It's accepting that things couldn't have gone any differently because of the way they were made up, their story leading all the way up to hurting you. It created what happened to you. That's an exercise I do with my ladies. I have them to, and when I say my ladies, the ladies that I work with in my dating and relationship coaching, I have them to write the story of people who hurt them up to the point where they hurt them. Where who were they before they ever met you? Before they ever hurt you, what was their story? And our pastor calls it your marinade. So when you write their story, you get to take this empathetic peek into who they are and what created how they are, how their parents treated them, how other people treated them, and then you see what it becomes. It's amazing. The ladies, when they come back from that assignment, they're like, well, Dad, I see now why they did me like that. Like it really could not have happened. It ain't a matter of why did they do it. It's how could they have not done that to me? How could they have not hurt me in that way? And that doesn't dismiss the person. That doesn't take away their responsibility. It's just saying this was never about you.
Yeah.
The way they hurt you was never about you. And that's to the men and women alike. The way your father, whoever hurt you was never about you. So you can release that. You can work through that process. And I dare you, I challenge anybody who's struggling with forgiveness to do that. Write that person's story, what you know about their life. And it will start to really unfold to you like, wow. Like my husband said, his dad passed away when my father-in-law, his dad passed away. It was like his grandfather passed away when he was like 9 years old.
Yeah.
When my father-in-law was 9 years old. And so he literally had even less of a chance. It wasn't even he had a dad across town and he didn't get to see. Yeah. He just did not have a daddy there at all. So when you start to really peek into somebody's story, you can kind of unravel, oh, wow. And that helps you let it go. But that don't mean you have to reconcile. Reconcile says, okay, now that I've forgiven you, let me come to the table and say, hey, you hurt me. I want to have a relationship with you. Here's how I'm willing to do it. How are you willing? It's a negotiation. It ain't something that just happened because you forgive them. So just want to put that out there. I know both of y'all look like y'all ready to jump in. Go ahead.
Well, real quick, it's like, okay, a lot of people say I forgive, I won't forget, which is true, you know, and special people you want to still have a relationship with, or you need to, like, you should, like your parents or whatever. So instead of saying forgive, instead of telling people I'm gonna forgive you, but I ain't gonna forget, you don't have to tell them that. You can forgive them, then reestablish some boundaries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Reconciliation process.
Instead of saying it though, like, I forgive you, but this needs to happen, you know.
If we're gonna move forward,
this needs to happen,
right.
You know.
Yeah.
It's not an ultimatum. It just is what it is.
It's a boundary.
Yeah, it's a boundary
of
you
how
know?
we're gonna be able to be, if we're gonna be anything.
Yeah.
But saying forgive, if I forgive you, but I ain't forget.
It has a ring to it, like it ain't settled.
I'm gonna use it against you. I'm
limitations.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love how you phrase it.
Yeah, it's like we can, because we know forgiveness is strong. You know, the power of forgiveness is strong. And saying forgive but not forget is like kind of weakening it, you know? And like
even if that's not the intent, it's still kind of received that way. Like,
I often say, like, the biggest difference, one of the biggest difference between someone who's a Christian and a non-Christian is that you know that you're forgiven.
Yeah.
You know, if you know you're forgiven, and also if you know you're accepted and loved, you're gonna walk in that forgiveness.
You're gonna walk a whole different
You're gonna
way.
walk in that love. You're gonna walk in that acceptance, you know.
I was just sharing that last night or whatever that it was. I was on the other call with them talking about that. That was last night. How the ladies that I work with a variety of ladies, and the ladies I work with that are Christian, when we do that forgiveness exercise, they fare much better on the other end. They they have their challenges, but they push on through because I think they have that forgiveness from God to lean on, to draw from. Whereas the people I work with who are unbelievers, they really struggle with forgiving. Even though we break it down beautifully and how it's not letting the person off the hook and all that stuff, they just like, no, I'm holding on to this, And that's not to say that anybody's any better than anybody else. It's just like my husband's saying, when you know that you are you have been forgiven by God and you can walk in that, you have more of it to give to other people.
Yeah, you got an example. Yeah. I think a lot of stuff is a reflection of us too. If I can't not a forgiving person, then I'm not gonna see. It's gonna make it harder for me to receive forgiveness too, and actually understand. It's gonna take a lot to break that. You know what I'm saying? Because we project a lot of ourselves onto our situation, our perceptions, and all that too. So definitely, that's a great point. I like that. That's a great point.
I was gonna say, and as a Christian, it's not Christ-like. You know, if you're unforgiving.
Yeah.
You know, if you're unloving, or
So it's like when that Holy Spirit is dwelling in you, it's something within you that won't even let you stay settled with having unforgiveness out there like that. Yeah. So I think this has been a wonderful discussion, fellas, and I really appreciate y'all for sharing so openly and so honestly. And I'm just praying that the replay will be watched by many, and their lives will be changed, and that they will find something to help them move forward in their walk. Is there any last word that y'all want to give as it pertains to this book, and what you got from it, or just anything that we talked about, even something we haven't talked about? What's y'all's final word to the people?
For me, first of all, thank you. This is really fun. This is really cool. So I appreciate the opportunity. But for me, or for any brothers that's out there that's like me, anything like that, I struggle with a healthy definition of manhood. I always felt like being a man had to be more than how many chicks you can smash, how much money you can make, how many cars you can get. You know what I'm saying? How many the images we see in hip hop and all this other stuff. It just was always something in life has to be more than that. And man, I didn't find that thing, that why, until I started to understand, the God and the higher power of why he actually, why am I here? Why does he care about me? Why am I black? What am I supposed to be doing? Until I started understanding that the things that anger me or bother me are keys to what God has given me a passion about and what I'm supposed to be doing in life in some ways. And that and that I got a place where I can go for healing and stuff like that. I got a place I can run to. I got somebody I can talk to, but I can't talk to nobody else. But I have to get past me and let go of my own perceptions of me to really understand God. But but for man, if we can do that as brothers and as men, I mean, it's just like she said, one man can easily change the world, man. And we can build the legacies that we want and be the men that we picture ourselves and desire us to be. We can do that. We can definitely do that. It takes some work and it takes some change, but we got a Holy Spirit that's with us to help us do that. So, and y'all are cool. Y'all, I appreciate this. This was fun, man. Definitely.
And we lost Tracy because she was having connection issues. She just got a new house and she haven't got the internet fully set up right, so she was having connection issues. But yeah, it's been amazing sharing with you and having you here too, meeting you for the first time. Go ahead, baby. What's your final word to the people?
Okay. Well, I want to say inward. Just because you show your emotions, if whether you cry, express your anger, doesn't make you less of a man. Doesn't make you less of a Christian. Jesus showed those emotions. Jesus wept. Jesus got angry. And I think, and still sin not. So she teaches emotions about emotions, and I do as well. And I teach about the brain, how the emotions work. So that's another
another discussion.
another discussion. I can get into the science of how the brain works. But anyway, as men, we need to make a safe place for ourselves first to express our emotions. Because if we want to be healthy for ourselves and for our kids and for our family, it starts with us. We got to have self-care. You got to take care of yourself. If I didn't take care of myself, I wouldn't be good for my wife. And as a teacher, I wouldn't be good for my students if I wasn't good for myself. And not just that, we need to make a safe haven for these boys and let them know it's okay to express emotions. You're not less of a man than you cry. Because if the boys don't express those emotions, they're gonna suppress them. And they suppress them, it's going to come out in ways that are unhealthy. Unchecked emotions. So, and I, I was telling one of my students, it's okay to cry, and so unhealthy boys become unhealthy men, So, I think by showing them and talking to young boys as a man and expressing your emotions, expressing yourself to them,
modeling it.
Modeling it will show them it's okay to express their emotions in a healthy way, and we need to learn how to identify those emotions so we can deal with them. Everything's not anger. But everything is comes out as you're processing anger or mad, but there's always underlying emotions under that anger.
And that kind of goes perfect because that goes into what my closing statement is, being the counselor and therapist and all that. First of all, emotional intelligence is a balance between you understanding your emotions and also being able to empathize and understand others. And one of the many benefits of having emotional intelligence is that, one of them that will probably strike a chord with a lot of men, people that are emotionally intelligent make more money in a lifetime than people who are not. So there's a reason to get more involved in that world and to really learn how to process and understand your emotions and get into that space where you can do that healing work. There are tons of resources out there. There's a website called Therapy for Black Men, I think .org. There's another one called blackmanheal.com, if I'm not mistaken. And so if it's not just type in therapy and black men, you'll find something. And there are practitioners there who are ready to help you grow in your emotional intelligence. And all that being said, I just want to see our men heal. I've always known, even though I ain't always liked y'all. I have always known, and I mean that from my own experiences of being, I was the brunt of a lot of the whole, you got to, hollered at a lot of women and stuff, and so I got hollered at from very early on in ways that were very inappropriate, you know. And so from that, it was a seed planted where I didn't really appreciate men that much, you know. And the Lord really helped me, you know, really to view men in a different way and become so like very much concerned with the well-being of the heart and the mind of man, because I personally feel like that is where God started it all, with the man. He started with the man, and as the man goes, the family goes. You know, as the man goes, the society goes. And so we need the men to really be in place and to be in a place where they're hitting on all cylinders. And so I'm just really grateful again to have y'all here. Thank you, Earl, for being here. Thank you, honey, for being here. And and for anyone else who, if y'all need any help, any resources on how to get to all those things, don't remember the websites or whatever, you can reach out to me at tracyred.com, and either I'll direct it to my husband if it's, you know, you need to talk some man stuff. I'll send you over to Earl, child. I send you over to Earl. How can the people reach you, Earl? What you do, Earl?
I'm retired, man. I got tired of being emotionally intelligent around folks, and I'm just kidding. So I retired, and I trade for a living and all that. So and then just help out nonprofits wherever I can. So
awesome. Okay. So yeah, if y'all want to reach out, y'all know where to find me, and I can direct you to either of these gentlemen or any other resource that you need. But until the next time, I will see you guys later. Bye bye. Thank you. Hung on for a minute, Earl.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. Bye, everybody.